We're live on Facebook.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Good evening. This is Dr. Schilling with this week's Wednesday Wellness Minutes, coming to you live from Sequoia Health, where we're excitedly anticipating our transition from our clinic now to phase one of the build-out next week. Next Friday, we're moving everything from this side over to the other side, and at that point, they'll start gutting this entire side. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Got a new member of the team. Heidi joined us on Tuesday. Fantastic. She's a nurse practitioner. Super excited to have her on team. She's super jacked to be here. So just a couple fun updates there for you guys. What else? Anything else, Amelia? Miss anything else? No? All right. I tried to make sure I had a funny face this time, so I didn't have an RDF, a resting dad face, on the video as it popped up, because I've had a couple of mean mugs the last time we've done lives. For whatever reason, I turn on the camera, it's like I got this funny face going on. Whatever. Today we're going to be talking about everyone suffers the pain of one of two things. Okay. And what's important is to understand, like, this is, generally speaking, if you know anything about Jim Rohn is a really well-known strategist, motivational speaker, teacher, and stuff like that. He was a mentor to Tony Robbins, who, if you don't know, he's got like 31 companies. They sell like $5 billion a year, something ridiculous as far as what that man's been able to accomplish as far as feeding millions of people. So him having Jim Rohn as a mentor, I mean, I call him Uncle Jim because I've got Uncle Tony, Uncle Jim, Uncle Grant, I got Uncle G, everybody, I got all kinds of uncles. But this was really fundamental for me to understand, like, how am I going to look at my life? I've always been sort of a type A driven kind of person, and not everybody's like that. So the point of this is to help you understand how you can sort of observe your life and things like that, and take a look at where do I fit, or where do I fall on either side of this line, which side of the coin am I on, shall we say. So the first one is the pain of regret. So the first pain you might suffer is regret. Now that can come in many different forms. You can have the regret of ignoring your health. What they say is if you ignore your health, it will go away. You can have the regret of not saying something, of not saying something when you're hurt, not saying something when you want to ask somebody out. It's a simple thing. Let's go for positive and negative, right? When you feel hurt by something or someone's words or something like that, and you feel that way, not saying something because of that. If you get excited about someone and you really, but you don't ask them out, it's like you could have the regret of that, right? You could have the regret of not doing something. So not starting something, a project or a career or something like that. The other side of that is quitting something too early, like quitting doing something, quitting an activity, a project, something you started. So many people are just so close to the quote unquote finish line, and what happens is that they lose sight of their end goal. They get caught up in the minutia, like the day to day. So their hourly, daily goals get wiped away, and they lose sight of their long term goal. So when you quit too early, like so many people are like, they forget the closer you get to accomplishing something, the more obstacles are going to come up in your way. It's just crazy. I've seen it time and time again. Every time I've gotten close to achieving something in my life, it's like the bigger roadblocks come up, and it's just testing you. Okay, so are you going to have the regret of giving up too early? Or not starting something, quitting too early, or putting something off. Like procrastination is a huge challenge for a lot of people. Starting something with anticipation and exhilaration, you're like, yeah, we're going to do it, and then all of a sudden, that falls away. But then on the other side, it's like the perfectionist mindset of like, I'm so excited to start this, but what if? Or what if that? And oh my gosh, what if this? Right? You could pay the price of putting it off, right? Because, ultimately the price you're going to pay is not doing something and not reaping the benefits. So nothing ventured, nothing gained is a way to look at it. You can look at sort of not being true to yourself, suffer the regret of not being true to yourself, being someone that other people need you to be rather than who you want to be, or what's your true authentic self. Because like living your authentic life, like having your voice, speaking your mind, whatever you want to call it, just being your authentic self and doing what is passionate for you rather than what other people expect you to do, it takes courage, okay? And it takes discipline. And so when you choose to go that route, it's not always going to be easy. In fact, it can be lonely at times, and it can be really challenging because other people aren't going to understand what you're doing. But if you don't, then you might have the regret of not doing that. You could suffer the regret of taking life too seriously, right? There's the old joke that don't take life too seriously because no one gets out alive, right? It's pretty funny. But when you believe that people are so like, I got to get this done. I got to focus on this. I got to, but I got to get this done before X, Y, and Z, right? Of all people, I realize more and more that I need to stop and smell the roses and spend time doing things that are, not constantly pushing. Like, life is more of an ultra marathon than it is a sprint. And sometimes when we get so excited about something, we feel like we had to sprint. And so, taking life too seriously, or taking anything too seriously can create a breakdown in your body. Too much stress is one way to look at it. Withholding love from someone you care about. So most of us at some point have felt unconditional love, but some of us have never felt unconditional love. And that can be a challenge because if you never felt it, you don't know how to give it. And so when you are in a relationship with someone in your life, it could be a parent, a sibling, a friend, a child, anything like that. If you never felt it or have only felt it seldomly, then your default might be to go withholding love, like, oh, they're not deserving of love. But that's your impression based on what you're interpreting their intention and what their actions maybe have been, right? Rather than saying, you know what, I don't know what was going through their mind. I don't know what they were dealing with. I don't know what stress they were dealing with. So rather than suffering the regret of withholding love from someone or not loving unconditionally, it's more about saying that person's worthy of love unconditionally no matter what, even if you, at the moment, it just hurts to even give them that unconditional love. So it's one thing to consider. The regret of not being present for either your kids or your loved ones, okay? I know some parents have to travel a lot, which is very challenging, but when you're there, make sure that they understand that they are the world. Make sure that they understand that no matter how far you go, how far-flung you travel, that you're always there with them. I try to remind Sophia, even if she's going to daycare and I'm going to the clinic, I'm always with you. I'm in your heart always. I love you no matter what. You're always loved no matter what you do. Whoever you want to become, you're always beloved. So I try to remind her of that because I don't ever want that regret. Not that I necessarily have that regret with my dad or my mom, but it's important to have that so you don't have that regret because that doesn't sit well if you've ever had that feeling. But make sure you're there for your loved ones, okay? It's really important because your relationships are the greatest predictor of your quality of life. And if you don't want to regret having poor health, then don't regret having poor relationships because if you can address those relationships, you can address any issues there. And that's going to be very powerful because when you can have those healthy relationships, life is more vibrant. One of my favorite movies is Into the Wild. And there's a metaphor at the end of that movie. And it doesn't spoil it all, but it basically says, happiness only exists when it's shared, okay? And it's really important because any human being in isolation is never as happy as they are with other people. Someone might convince themselves that way just because they've been wounded so many times and they're hurt and they don't trust anybody else, but ultimately human beings were meant to live in tribes and in villages and culture and socialize and things like that. And when we can interact with people like that, our happiness factor, our joy factor is increased so many-fold. So, I would just say, be there for friends and families. Oftentimes, we're not taught to follow our intuition, and we can oftentimes go against our intuition until we get slapped hard enough that it reminds us, don't ignore me, I'm still here, right? So it's your gut, right? If you ever listen to your gut, it never leads you astray because it's like your guidance system, your guiding principle. It says, hey, stay in here, don't go that way. If you get a feedback from it, it can be an alarm bell, it can be an overreaction, but at the same time, it's giving you an indication that you're treading somewhere into something that might be uncomfortable. And so when you go against your intuition, it depends on where you're at with your self-awareness. We'll talk about that in a second, but depending on how self-aware you are, whether you're pushing against something that's a limit that's holding you back or it's something that is definitely dangerous or potentially another wound for you. So listen to your gut. Your gut's not going to lie to you. If it lies to you too many times, then start questioning it. But generally speaking, it doesn't lie to you. So one might regret not standing up to bullies in their life, right? That's not a common one, but not having the strength and the courage and even just overcoming that fear, right? Bullies are out there, and bullies are just people that are hurting. Bullies are people that are sad, they're hurting, they're depressed, they're not feeling loved, so they want to bring somebody else down to their level, or they want to make someone feel lower than them so that they feel like they're elevated and they feel better about themselves. And it only happens for a little while, right? They only feel better about themselves for a little bit. You might go on with your life and say, well, I know who I am, I respect myself, and I feel good about myself no matter what anybody else does. But as a child or as a young person, it can be confusing, especially for, there's even cyberbullying, there's physical bullying, There's all kinds of bullying, but not standing up to a bully. I remember, I don't know how old I was, maybe 12, and I had a guy that was like my brother's age, like 18, and he was, pushing me around. And probably a good choice I didn't stand up to him at that point, but, understanding that you don't have to stand up physically. You can basically say, you know what, you should go fly a kite in kind words and say, you don't have control over me. No matter what you do to me, you don't have power over me. So you can say that in how you act or how you carry yourself instead of just physically going after him. Two wrongs don't make a right. Bullying back or being aggressive physically when someone's physically aggressive with you doesn't usually solve anything and doesn't usually make anything better either. So rounding it out, number 10, as far as the regrets that I think that people have a tendency to deal with is choosing things that damage us. Choosing choices, whether it be food, beverage, activities, right? Things that are going to cause us to have to repair from it tomorrow rather than having something prepare you for tomorrow. Okay, that's one of my guiding principles, and it served me very well to say, okay, if I eat this, drink this, do this, is it going to prepare me for tomorrow, or am I going to regret tomorrow having done that, and I'm going to have to repair from it? So there's just some ideas about one of the pains you're going to suffer in life. Are you going to suffer the pain of regret? The other side of that coin is you can suffer the pain of discipline, which when discipline comes into your life, you can determine that you're going to get a lot more out of life because you're willing to do the work ahead of time. Okay? So the discipline of self-care, we just kind of finished off on the regrets, but the self-care is kind of the beginning of where we want to start with our disciplines. So choosing foods that are nourishing for you, choosing friends that are encouraging and nurturing for you, right? Relationships, choosing beverages that are going to hydrate your body rather than dehydrate your body, or a beverage that's going to hydrate you and uplift you and give you energy versus, and I'm not talking Monster or Red Bull either, but versus alcohol, which is going to dehydrate you and cause your cells to weaken and have your liver have to work extra hard and things like that. So self-care is a major discipline that, some people have a I'm not worth it conflict. Some people have, I don't have the willpower conflict and stuff like that. There's a reset for that. Trust me. You can overcome that, but that's probably somebody else's belief that you watched growing up. It's usually a negative pattern. It's an underlying cause of self-sabotage, as we call a negative pattern. But, not taking the steps to do that self-care, eating, drinking, so think about eating right, sleeping right, thinking right, moving right, pooping right, talking right, allowing certain things that are helpful into your mind, right? Not to go on to the right or wrong kind of scenario, but piggybacking off last week. But understanding that doing things that are nurturing for you, that's self-care, right? That comes in many, many forms. That can be massage for some people. It can be a coffee colonic for another. It can be walking for another person. It can be meditation for another person. It could be nurturing food, a friend's conversation, whatever that is for you. That's self-care, right? Another thing of discipline is like putting yourself in a position to succeed. Choosing steps and choosing actions that are going to set you up for opportunities, right? I think luck is like the crossroads of hard work and opportunity, right? When you put in that hard work and you put in that discipline, and then the opportunity comes along, that's when you have the good luck, right? You hear about these overnight sensations that people are, they just made it famous overnight. But they've been grinding for 20 years, 30 years, who knows how long. And all of a sudden they're an overnight sensation because someone gets aware of them and then they spread like wildfire. But it really goes into the discipline that they had for those decades leading up to that. And all of a sudden, bam, they're prepared. They've done the discipline, they've done the self-work, and then the opportunity comes, and then guess what? It happens, okay? So that's one way to look at it as far as putting yourself in a position for success. That can also come in the form of avoiding temptations. Because when you think about putting yourself, you go to a club, or you go to a party, or you go to a gathering here, or in a position there, you're putting yourself in position either for success or for defeat. Right? If you're constantly putting yourself in front of temptations, right? People who succeed aren't the ones that are avoiding temptation, or I shouldn't say they're not like saying I have the willpower to not take that temptation. They're just putting themselves in a position where they don't have to be tempted, right? So it's like someone who overeats or has trouble stopping themselves from eating. Like putting yourself in a position for success is like not having it in the house, right? You can't eat it if it's not there unless you jump in a car, drive to the store, buy it, and then eat it. That just takes so much more effort. It takes so much more effort to eat something, drink something, do something than it does to not. But people are always looking for a way to ease their pain. So whether it's food, drink, beverage, activity, whatever it is, it could be gambling, it could be sex, it could be food, it could be drink, whatever it is, drugs, alcohol, everything. That's just a way of trying to sedate your pain. And if you understand why you're doing it, you understand the threads doing it, you become self-aware of that, which is what we'll talk about in a minute. It's really important. That's how you can succeed. So you're suffering that discipline of understanding yourself and understanding what triggers you and who triggers you and where you can go without problems and what challenges, and then finding help with someone that can help you overcome those. That's really one of those disciplines. If you suffer that discipline, I'm telling you, life is grand. Not procrastinating, suffering the discipline of attacking something when it comes up on your radar, right? One of the hard things to do is like, oh, I'll get to it, and eventually it's like, oh crap, it's right in front of me now, I can't even avoid it, right? Now the pressure comes. And some people say, well, I thrive under pressure and this and that. I can assure you that any single person's always benefited better from taking small bites of something, right? Like a goal, like a small goal here and there, versus like cramming it all in. Like, I got to study all night for this test, right? Which you don't retain half of it anyway. And you get crummy sleep and your brain's not even detoxifying and you're now less aware and less alert and stuff like that is an example. But, attacking that head on and saying, I can approach this now, right? And have that courage to say, you know what, I'm afraid. I'm really nervous about this, but do it anyway. That's one of those disciplines that's like, okay, and it's like a muscle, right? Any of this is like a muscle. You got to practice it. So whether it's a temptation, whether it's a putting yourself in the position, whether it's a doing something, not doing something, it's just like a muscle you're flexing, and your muscle grows, if you will, with practice. So this habit, this discipline is going to grow with practice. But being afraid and doing it anyway, that's just the definition of courage.
Sorry.
Amelia's playing with her phone over here. No big deal. All right, here she goes again. But there you go. So setting goals is really important. And think about, we do battle plans here at the clinic. So looking at our day, we say, okay, I have these hours in the day. I have these many things to do. Based on what I'm looking at the schedule, what participants we have coming in, things like that, I'm going to plan it this, okay? So you have hourly goals, half-day goals, full-day goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals, whatever it is, decade goals. So breaking it down into small bits makes it less overwhelming, okay? If you can be less overwhelmed, fantastic, right? So break it down into small bites, right? Take it one bite at a time. You don't go to the buffet and eat the whole thing at one time, right? You just eat it one bite at a time. So when you can break down a big thing into a small step, it becomes more manageable. But never lose sight of that end goal, remember? Because that's when you get derailed. Like, oh, I'm not going to do it anyway. I'm going to give up, forget about it, okay? So consider that. Boundaries are a great one. The discipline of boundaries, whether that's with an overbearing parent, overbearing sibling, friend, whoever it is, someone who tends to try to control you, someone who is always like overstepping your boundaries. Suffering the discipline of setting that boundary and maintaining that boundary is really important, because that's going to say, okay, this is me and this is my world, and you're just living in it no matter how important you are to me. Like, this is my boundary. So understanding what you're willing to accept, what you're not willing to accept, and what you won't tolerate are really important steps to consider in life by saying, hey, I can handle this, I can't handle that, and I certainly won't accept that. Those are really important to understand for your boundaries. And they're going to differ between people in your life. Friends are different than family. Kids are different than adults and parents and stuff like that. But understanding like what your boundaries are and adhering to them and saying, this is what I need to honor myself and to be healthy. So I'm going to set that boundary and I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to be disciplined about it, because if you've ever had a child, I'll tell you what, you deviate from one of those guidelines that you're trying to instill in them, being as flexible as possible but still being consistent, and they will see a hole in that all day long and they will just dig in, right? They'll pit parents against each other, and they'll try to wedge their way in there, and they'll try to tease out the weaknesses and the inconsistency. So being consistent is like one of the greatest disciplines you can have, which will bear so much fruit for you. That's all I can say about that. Part of this is like getting to know yourself, right? Suffer the discipline of getting to know yourself, okay? Which is actually a joy when you think about it. In fact, whether you look at it as a suffering of something, a suffering of pain of one or two things, I think of it as like an opportunity. I have the opportunity to not regret things, and I have the opportunity to gain knowledge and to understanding and self-reflection, things like that. So instead of thinking suffering, I'm like, getting to know myself is so painful. Experimenting with food or beverage or whatever it is and understanding what works for me, what doesn't work for me, that's a pain. Like, that's an opportunity. So whether you choose to see things as an opportunity or a threat, that's going to frame your entire life, okay? That's kind of really, getting to know yourself. How can you improve on yourself as far as what areas of your life are not working the way you want them to, and what steps can you take as a proactive measure to start shaping and molding your life to get to what you want out of life, rather than just getting whatever else is leaving. So suffering the pain of one or two things, right? Discipline or regret. Which one are you going to choose, right? And look back on life and say, what's my teaching moment here? When I look back at that point, I was not disciplined. I didn't take action and I regretted it. Or I didn't address that issue and I ended up regretting it. Or I wasn't true to myself and I regret that. Or, okay, now identify that. I've seen a pattern in the past. Now I know what I'm like. I know who I am. So I'm going to start taking steps on a daily basis, because you never change anything in your life until you change something you do on a daily basis. Take a step, one step. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's a friend, family member, work, child, parent, whatever it is. Just take one step in that direction and gain some confidence. Get some momentum building, because when you have momentum, then you become unstoppable. And so once you start setting boundaries here, taking action here, being less afraid here, being afraid but doing it over here, that's going to give you the momentum to just kind of keep going, all right? So reflect on life, reflect on your daily habits these days and say, what is it that I want out of life, and what am I willing to change? Like, sometimes you just need to radically do things differently. That could start with brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, standing on your opposite foot, brushing your teeth. That could be getting up in the morning and going outside and moving your body. That could be going to bed a half an hour earlier, getting up in a half an hour earlier. It just depends on what works for you. But start taking control of your life by saying, I'm going to direct my life rather than see what happens to me in my life. So you've heard me say it before, and it's not original to me, but the best way to predict your future is to create it. Okay? Don't wait around for things to happen. Don't wait around to see what happens at work, who's going to give you a promotion or who's going to lay you off, or if your relationship with your dating partner or your marriage is going to be beneficial or be sustainable. Take actions, right? There's tons of stuff you can do. If you need ideas, if you're at a loss for I don't know what to do, this seems hopeless, what can I do? Just send us a text, send us an email, call us. We'll help you out. It doesn't matter if you're a participant or not. We're here to serve you. That's our passion. So that's why we come to you every week, a couple times a week, to say, how can we serve you? And I bring the ideas because I hear different things from different people, and if I hear a thread or a theme going on too many times, then I start saying, okay, I should probably address this, because if a couple people here have that challenge or that issue, then I guarantee thousands, if not millions of other people have it. So we would love to know what you'd like us to speak about, what you'd like us to present about, what information you desire for enhancing your life and overcoming your limiting beliefs or things that are holding you back. Feel free to message us in any way, shape, or form: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, email, text, phone call, whatever you want to do. Okay, and we're here to serve you. That's our passion, our purpose. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you and your loved ones. We hope this has enhanced your quality of life. That's one of our main goals. Let us know how we can continue to do that. I'll say again, if you are interested in having yourself worked up in front of the whole world, we'd love to do that too. Like if you got an issue that no one can figure out, like I've been to everybody, I've been to Mayo and the whole 9 yards, right? Let us know. We'll make it happen. And there are no mysteries in life anymore. There's in healthcare, in your health, in your body, and your longevity and things like that, there's no mysteries. If you have a question that's gone unanswered, don't suffer unnecessarily any longer. Get the information you need to, okay? And if you want to be benefiting other people by helping them understand from your experience, then we'll do that on a live, okay? But regardless, we're here to answer your questions and support you and your loved ones, okay? So for now, we'll sign off for this week for the Wednesday Wellness Minutes. We'll look forward to seeing you on Friday for the live Q&A. Make sure to send in text, phone, or email your questions. Let us know. You can message us down here. We'll get the message. We'll provide that information. We love providing information for people to help you be armed and dangerous, so you can take your life by the horns, take the ball by the horns, and create the life you want rather than wait for it to happen, okay? So for now, we'll sign off, guys. Have a great night. Get out and enjoy the weather. It's beautiful outside. It might be a little steamy, but find some shade, feel the breeze, get some sun on your face, enjoy it, all right? We'll look forward to seeing you next week, if not Friday. All right, guys? Take good care. Bye-bye.